What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the Fusion 360 tutorial series. This is day 6 of learning Fusion 360 in 7 days. This tutorial series is for complete beginners with Fusion 360 in order to learn the ropes from sketching our first component to assembly geometries by day 7. And if you've actually stuck around for this whole series so far, you'll realize that we actually completed that by day 5. That's awesome. So today, instead, we're going to go ahead and take a look at creating some renders and animations in order to showcase the creations and bring them to life. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the lamp assembly that we made in the last video. Throughout the entire series, we have spent it in the design section of Fusion 360, looking at this dull gray color on all the components that we designed. So let's have some fun today and mix up the screen that we've been looking at all this time to create some nice renders and images of our creations. To do this, we need to switch Fusion 360 to its rendering environment. We'll do this through the environment switcher, so press on this drop-down menu up here and select render. That will change the environment to look like this. And you should also notice that the toolbar has also changed to include options such as appearances, scene settings, decals, and render controls. So let's take a look at how this can be useful. The first step to rendering is to apply realistic materials to our model. This will control how light interacts with the surfaces, making them look more like metal, plastic, glass, etc. To add materials to our models, we will open up the Appearances browser, the icon of which looks like a color wheel. Press on it, and that will open up this window here. By pressing on the Fusion Appearances tab here, we can see that we have a list of different material categories appear, such as concrete, fabric, glass, liquid, metal, etc. And if we click on one of these categories, it will open up all the materials that is stored in it. So for fabric, we can see that we have different colors and textures. Whereas for metals, there are different types such as aluminum and brass, and in each of these, they have different color and surface finish variations. And these are all the materials that are made pre-available within the Fusion software. However, you will also notice that there looks to be like a download button off to the side of the materials here. And this is because, yes, you actually do need to download it. So for whichever new material you want to use, hit the download button and it will be available for you to use in any new designs you create later on. Now that we have downloaded the appearances that we want, we can go ahead and easily add them to our components. Ensure the Apply To button on the top here is toggled to Bodies and Components. Select the appearance you want and simply drag it over to the component you want to add it to, which, as you can see, it gets highlighted when you hover over it. And just like that, we can see that the component has now changed to have a glossy finish to it. And we can continue adding appearances to another component. Just simply choose the appearance you want to add, drag it over to the component you want to add it to, and there you go. It's really as simple as that. Let's continue adding appearances to all the other components. And just like that, now our model has realistic materials attached to it. So let's go ahead and set up the scene behind it. So to make our model look even better, we need to set up the environment lighting and background. To enter the scene setting menu, let's click on the second icon, which looks like a ball in a room. This will open up this window here. First, let's click on the Environment Library tab. Here we can choose the different lighting setups and backdrops to help simulate real-world lighting, such as studio lighting, outdoor lighting, and industrial lighting. Just like we did for the appearances, we can simply grab the environment you want to add and drag it into the gray environment. At first, you'll notice that if you drag the different environments, the shadow behind the object changes due to the lighting setup that is chosen within the environment. Now, if we go back to the Settings tab, this is where we can play around with the lighting and camera settings. The first option that we have is a slider, which will adjust the brightness of the light source. By sliding the slider to the right, we can see that the colors on the object become extremely bright. This is also partly due to increasing the light intensity, but we've also chosen a material on the object itself, and this also plays a role. Since we chose a glossy finish, it will be more likely to reflect light. By clicking on the symbol beside position, this is where a little arrow will appear and another slider bar over here. By moving the blue arrow, we can adjust the height at which the light source is located, which as a result, we can see that this shadow will detach from the object. And the slider bar, on the other hand, will simply rotate the light source around the given object at the chosen height, which, as we can see, will cause the shadow to rotate around the object. For the background, this refers to this gray color here. We can choose to leave it as solid color, which can be chosen by pressing on the color bar beside color and choosing the color we want from the color wheel, or if we go back to background and press on the drop-down menu and press on environment, this will insert the backdrop from the environment that we chose earlier. Now we can choose to give our environment a ground plane or a bottom. Currently, if we rotate our lamp, it's kind of just floating in space, and if we zoom in and out, the object will get bigger and smaller, but the environment behind it will remain the same size. But if we select flatten ground over here, this will position the ground texture to lock onto the bottom of our object. So now, if we zoom in and out or rotate the object, it will also scale the environment behind it accordingly. We can also choose to make the ground have a reflection by pressing on the checkbox beside reflections, and like the light source, we can adjust the intensity of the reflection to make it more or less visible. Once we have our environment set, we can also tweak the camera settings to get the best picture for our creation. By pressing on the drop-down menu beside camera, we can choose the different camera views. I prefer leaving it as perspective view since it allows us to view deep into our environment rather than just the immediate areas around the object like it does for orthogonal camera view. We can also adjust the focal length, which widens or narrows the scene behind the object, but keep in mind that 48 millimeters is the natural human eye perspective for focal length. Exposure controls the brightness of the render, and by playing with depth of field, we could adjust how blurred the background becomes. And finally, aspect ratio, like any image, controls the proportions of the rendered image. Keeping it on view passport ratio means that the rendering will match the current display proportions, but you can also choose any other proportions you may like. And finally, if after all this time you are very happy with the environment and scene you created, you can always save the changes you made as the default settings by pressing on the save icon here. And now we can close this window, and there you have it. We have set up a scene around our object. Now that everything is set up, let's see how we can generate the high quality renders that we have been talking about this whole time. To do this, we will press on the teapot icon in the render section of the toolbar to open up the render settings. That will open up this window here. First, we can pick the image size that we want by pressing on the drop-down menu here, which has all the common picture sizes and resolutions for a whole bunch of devices. Or if the image size we want is not available, we can always choose the desired aspect ratio for our image from the second drop-down menu. And then we could adjust the image width and height. However, make sure that the padlock is enabled so that when one of the dimensions is changed, the other one will be updated according to the proportions chosen. For exposure type, leaving on native will import the light settings from the scene setup, so that is good to go. For file format, we have a variety that we can choose from. Typically, I would leave this on PNG since this file extension is a lossless format, meaning that there's going to be no quality lost in the image while saving it, and it allows for easier post-processing later on. We also have the option to render with Fusion on the cloud or to render on the local machine. Rendering on the local machine does occupy the software while the rendering is happening, so just keep that in mind. And finally, we have render quality. Standard will give a faster rendering speed, but at the cost of resolution, whereas final will give a higher quality, but will take much more time to process. So choose this as you wish. When you have all the settings in place, go ahead and press on the render button. The program will do its thing and produce a nice rendered image that you can easily view in the rendering gallery down here. Very cool. So now that we saw how to create rendered images, we can also set up Fusion to create animations to showcase the design from exploded views. To start, we need to head over to the environment switcher to switch Fusion to its animation environment. For that, press on the environment switcher and press on animation. That will change the environment to this and give us a new toolbar for animations. To set up a new animation, press on the storyboard icon here. Press on OK, and this will open up a new animation timeline at the bottom here. We can rename the timeline by right-clicking on storyboard and naming it what we want. In this case, I'm going to name it Exploded View. Now, every time we make a modification to our model, Fusion will automatically create a keyframe and place it in the timeline. A keyframe is like a marker that defines a specific position, rotation, or scale, or other properties of an object. It serves as a starting or ending point for motion, and Fusion 360 automatically interpolates or calculates the movement between keyframes to create a smooth animation. So we can choose the Transform Components command from the Transform section of the toolbar and start moving components much like we did when we moved components during the assembly phase. Select on the component you want to move, and I will move these components linearly by dragging the arrow here. And if we click on another component to move it, we see that Fusion added a keyframe for the movement of the lampshade that we just moved. So we can keep moving components, and we should see that every time we select the next component, a keyframe is made. If, however, you want to move a component but don't want Fusion to record its movement, simply place the timeline bar where this little red icon is. Now we can see that when we move components, no new keyframes are actually made. This is the basis in creating animations for exploded views. Though, as a side note, like everything else in Fusion, the program does have a pre-built function for automatically creating exploded views, so I encourage you guys to play with these settings to see the full capability of the program. But for now, since my assembly does not have many components, I will keep doing it manually to ensure all the components go where I want them to. Now with all the keyframes created, we can modify their length and their start time. Simply hover over the keyframe you want to modify. When you see these horizontal arrows appear, you can click and drag out to modify the duration of the move. And if you hover over the keyframe and these cross arrows appear, you can hold, click, and drag it to move the start time of when the movement is going to happen. And to verify the animation, simply press on the play button to see the exploded view come to life. Once happy with the animation, don't forget to use the publish command to turn it into a video. And that's how easy it is to create exploded views in Fusion 360. So, with all that being said, this will be the end of day 6 of learning Fusion 360 in 7 days. Today we saw how it's possible to bring our designs to life, creating realistic renders and creating exploded view animations. Stay tuned for day 7, where we'll wrap up the Fusion 360 tutorial series, looking at how easy it is to make drawings and how we can prepare our files for 3D printing. If you found the video helpful, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe for more engineering content.